Today we get to see the danger of a determined attacker. Hi friends, welcome to today's bonus badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host as always, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Sacramento, California.
Palm pepper spray has recently reformulated for even more effect when you bless the deserving with the hot sauce. Palm is what I use between a harsh word and a gun and encourage everyone to do likewise. We're about to see a dash cam from a witness who is going to see a guy wave a gun around at somebody else and point it at a bunch of people and call 911 based on that. We have dash cam and badge cam. Get ready, it's a doozy.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
This is description. Yeah, I think so.
Straw hat, green jacket, black pants.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Copy, shots fired. 6286 Lemon Hill Avenue, shots fired.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Shots fired.
7-8 on hit.
Copy, 7-8 hit.
Oh, shots.
Shots fired. Straw hat.
Dear fucking shit. Shots fired. 7-8, shots fired. Shots fired. He's at the top of the stairs. Right there. Seven, 8 on the hit. Yep.
11 Hill units to respond. Straw hat, green jacket, black pants.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Copy, shots fired.
Where'd he go? Where'd he go?
He's at the top of the stairs. Right there.
Shots fired, let's go. Oh, shots fired. Are you good? 6-4 he is right now. He's on the other side of my car. He is west side apartment. Hey, watch your back, watch your back. Yeah, I see him. He's reloading. 6-4, he's hitting fences right now. It looks like he just went onto the second story of the apartment complex on the south side. (6-4), we lost visual of him. We're gonna try and back out here. Hey, let's try to back out. Hey, go. Go this way. Go this way. I got you. Let's go. He went this way. Get out of here. Get out. Where are you? Where are you at? Where are you at? Oh! Are you good? Here, let's get back. Come on. Are you hit or no?
No.
Okay, hey, he's good. He's not hit.
Great. I'm good. It just hit my pants.
After all that, nobody hit nothing, and our perp scampered off. They ended up putting up a perimeter, and about 8 hours later, they sniffed him down with the canine. The canine got a little bit of bite practice. Homie went to jail with some doggy bites, and our officer was not shot. You heard him say that he thought he was initially, but it actually just perforated his pants, and we've got some lessons to think about. Man, suddenly, Sacramento, jumping up on the channel.
We're not picking on you, Sacramento. Just stop being a place where bad things happen.
Lessons time. Mike, I'm gonna say this one is a goat rope for sure. And that goat rope starts with a dude showing up and doing the get up with a gun in his hand in Sacramento. And I think, what would a good private citizen do in this case? I think the right answer is exactly what this guy did, is hit the reverse, get the heck out of there, and get on the phone to 911.
Absolutely. If you can avoid a situation, that saves you all sorts of headache and heartache down the road. So if you can get the heck out of Dodge, get the heck out of Dodge. That's just what he did. You know, again, I always talk about officers, like, what am I going to see today? Private citizen, definitely not expecting to see this through the windshield of their car that morning. Yeah, and I know some private citizens would say, hey, man, I'm just going to hit the gas and mow this guy down. You don't know the whole situation. I mean, this guy is not a good guy. Obviously, he wasn't on his way to Bible study here or whatever, or Boy Scout camp. But, you know, you don't know what's going on. I would not recommend doing that as a private citizen for sure. Absolutely
as a
not.
Police officer, you know, he's shooting at people. Okay, fine. But I'm just going to say, back out of there and call 911. I think the private citizen did exactly the right thing in this particular case. Now, I will say that the officers, they know where this guy is. He's waving a gun around at people. He seemed a little bit nonchalant to me. And all of a sudden, this guy shows up and points a gun at him, and this officer has to get a shot off quickly. Now, I'm going to say most people, and including most officers, don't shoot at an upward angle like this. And the first time you do it, I know the first time I did it, it was a little bit weird. It's pretty easy to get used to, but you got to practice that stuff.
You know, I've said recently on the channel that officers need to be practicing from all sorts of different positions. And the last one you think about is shooting at a target that's elevated higher than you, because it's hard to simulate that on a range, on a flat range, for obvious reasons. But you've got to figure out a way, even if it's just shooting, you know, practicing with a mantis, for example, just getting your mantis out and picking a target that's high up and get used to drawing and firing at something elevated like that. But yeah, 100% agree. Not the easiest shot. Plus the guy's bladed. Plus there's a railing in the way. There's a lot of things that make this not the world's easiest shot for sure.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of people are going to make comments about the fact that the officer is, shall we say, full-figured. And I'm not going to give him too much crap. Maybe that's a little hypocritical on my part. But, you know, recognize, I don't think it made a big difference in his performance this day, but it didn't help him any either. Now, the second one that I really do want to say is that 0.16 seconds after his first shot, the second shot breaks, and he did not mean to shoot that second shot. You can tell because, again, his hands are all the way back. He meant to shoot one shot. This is kind of definitionally, Mike, an accidental or negligent discharge. And this is something we got to be very cautious of.
Yeah, you and I and the ASP staff were discussing this earlier, trying to figure out what it might have been. One theory I had, which who knows, is maybe they hadn't trained on that gun sufficiently, or it's a new gun they transitioned to. But the fact remains, before you field any offensive weapon, any firearm, anything like that, you need to have trained with that to the point where you can't have an accident like this. So it really is on you to train yourself sufficiently to understand how the gun operates and what you can and can't do with it.
Now, I like that our officer goes and gets himself to a better position and gets himself some cover. I think that's great. I think where he got cover is good. I am going to say I got a big challenge with what comes next, because he is going to see this guy first before the guy sees him. So this perp who has just shot at him is pointing a gun at the in-car camera and at the other officer, and our officer is spending time, though, rather than being in the fight, he's talking on the stinking radio. And I say this all the time, get off the radio. You have everything you need to win the fight. And in this case, we can see that it cost the officer significant time, and that might have been the difference between getting a hit and his miss.
I'll never understand being on the radio at this point. Doesn't make any sense. He has, like you said, he has everything he needs to win this fight right here and now. And he has a cover unit or two. I'm not sure how many other officers there, but at least one cover unit. So let's get in the fight. Let's be hunters here and look for this guy and find a way to contain him and stop him from doing what he's doing. And yelling shots fired. It's going to be minutes before anyone shows up as a result of you getting on the radio, and it's going to be long done before anyone arrives. So you just need to get on your gun and find this guy and make sure he stops doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I think the mindset has to be, I have everything I need on my person and with me on scene to win this fight. I have the skills. I have the tools. I am able to win this fight. I get it, you want to get some help your way, but everything is going to be over before they get there anyways. And so until you have something significant and meaningful to say, don't say it. Get off the radio and win the fight.
Most agencies have what's called an emergency button. It's a little, little orange or yellow button that's on the radio somewhere. They can just press. If you've got that, feel free to just reach. You should know where it is. You have to look for it, but just press that thing real quick. But stay on the gun. Stay doing what you're doing. The radio traffic's just not helpful.
On this next one, Mike, I'm actually just a little bit surprised because our officer did get the first shot off here, and the bad guy's about to shoot back at him and skip a bullet up, and that's the one that perforated his pant leg. But usually what I see from officers is after their first volley of fire that they go, oh no, what happened? They usually settle down and remember their marksmanship requirements. And in this case, this guy is wanting to kill you, and misses don't win gunfights. And I know that sounds cliche, and maybe it is cliche, but this is why your skills matter. Remember, the department is going to train you to limit their liability. They are not going to train you to the place that you are actually competent with the firearm. You have to do that yourself. And I know that sounds a little harsh, Mike, but the people who agree with me in saying that is every cop I've ever met.
It's, cops are a funny bunch because on any given agency, there's only a certain percentage of cops that really care about training beyond the standard that's required of them. Be one of those cops if you're listening to this. Be the cop who gets the extra training. Whatever you got to do to get reps in, because this officer wasn't expecting this to happen, but here he is in this situation, and he has all the tools he has to end this fight, and he shoots like crap. He should have been able to put this guy down from that distance and end this threat. This whole thing would be over, but he didn't have the skills in that moment to do what he had to do. And that's, like, again, that sounds harsh, but there were no reason he couldn't have ended this gunfight right then and there.
Well, and all you can do is bring all the skill that you currently possess on demand to the task at hand. That phrase I learned from Brian Hill from The Complete Combatant. And you've got to recognize that, hey, my skill set has to be superior in that moment. Not because, oh, I'm a meat-eating crime fighter, but just because I want to live through this. I want to survive this. And I think that's critically important here. Now, he gets back behind again, and so that guy's out of there, and now he's going to run off. And now thinking about the fact that he is running off and shows his back to the officer, and the officer, again, has now a 15 to 20-yard shot. And I don't want to belabor the point here too much, but recognize he is the one responsible to put this down. And I'd also like to say his backstop here is miserable. It's an apartment complex with flimsy exterior walls, and those misses are going to stop somewhere, and you got to be accountable for those.
Yep, this is this shot. For anyone watching who's not familiar with the law or this channel, this shot as he's running away, still armed, is absolutely justified in the back. We shoot the target that presents itself. No, it's the why, not the where. So this would have been a justified shot. And again, if you're listening to this, officers, you know what your weak points are in your shooting and in your tactics. You know if your defensive skills aren't good or if your shooting isn't good. Get out there, get the training, pay for it on your own if you have to. But this guy's life's in danger, and now the lives of everyone in this apartment complex are in danger because this madman's running around with a gun shooting at people.
Yeah, and again, the threat keeps going until you make it stop, and so you got to be willing and able and ready to keep it from happening. Now, we go to the officer's badge cam here, going to see a couple of interesting bits, because immediately this guy's going to point a gun at the officer. It's kind of hard to see on his badge cam here. I do want to remind everybody that what we see on the camera is not what the officer sees with their eyes. Number one, it's not at eye level. Number two, it does not have the resolution of the human eye. And number three, here it's in shadows a little bit. So the officer's going to be able to see far more, but this guy's pointing a gun at the officer, and this is a non-standard presentation, so you got to see what you need to see and get a hit here.
Absolutely. Again, as I said before, people don't practice shooting, at an elevated position because of the obvious restrictions of a flat range, but find a way to get those reps in because, at this moment, sure, he just got shot at, but he's got a shot that's makeable at this moment.
Yeah, it's probably a 10-yard shot, not what we would call super duper high skilled, but it still takes more than nothing, right? Most people couldn't hit the broadside of a barn at 10 yards. But a trained professional should be able to. And I think the place you get a practice on this is force on force as much as anything. Yep, I think dry fire, dry practice is great on this stuff too, but get some force on force training, man. This is the kind of stuff that will let you experience that kind of adrenaline, or not exactly like a gunfight, but not completely far away from it. Now, okay, we're going to see from a bit of the officer's perspective here. We know where that guy's going to come down. He's got to come down the stairs if he's going to come down and attack us from that second-story apartment. Now, before we even get there, I'm going to notice here that the officer comes up and has his finger on the trigger when he does not intend to. He's got a single action trigger here with the SIG 226 with the trigger, the hammer back. And what I'm seeing here, Mike, is what looks to me to be a pattern of subpar gun handling skills. And listen, this officer survived. Okay, fine. He didn't get shot by the guy. I think he did enough right to escape that day. But I think it's a call to all of us to do better, to train to a higher standard.
Yeah, as I've said before, I'll say it again. You have to practice these skills, keeping your finger off the trigger, muzzle discipline, all that sort of thing. You have to practice them until they become unconsciously competent behaviors. You don't have to think about them. Your finger is never on the trigger when it doesn't need to be. Your gun is never accidentally muzzling someone else. So, yeah, I don't know what Sacramento PD's training budget is, but if this is any indication, they're just not doing enough of it.
Yeah. Now, he's on the radio, and so he has to get two hands on the gun to get a hit on this guy who is pointing a gun at somebody else in there. But he's got the drop here. He absolutely has a drop on this guy, and so this is his opportunity. Now, if he wasn't on the radio here, he could use that half second that he had to spend to get two hands on the gun to have already established himself a very strong two-handed grip. The other thing that I really want to talk about here is the fact that his partner officer, who is over on the left here, is, he is hugging his car so close that he can't really see around the car. So he doesn't have the ability to see this guy in the fight. He's not going to get to do anything but hear the gunshots because he's hugging his car too close. And you're only going to learn that by going to classes and getting some training on the proper use of cover to back away from it so that you can use it effectively.
Yeah, as you said a second ago about the officer whose badge camera looking at being on the radio, there's no reason for it. And he had the drop. He could have ended this whole thing right here, as I said earlier. And that's a disappointment. As for the other officer, I get it. I've been shot at. It's scary. And what your body's telling you to do is run away or curl up into a ball. That's what your body's telling you to do. Yeah. But you have to be able to overcome that. And like John, like you said, force on force training is probably the #1 way to get it done. Yeah. Whatever kind of simunition or whatever kind of, even just paintball, whatever you can do to get yourself inoculated to violence, and so you can be in a position to break cover a little bit and get after that bad guy when the time comes.
Yeah. You can see here as well, this is where our bad guy is. You can just barely see him in the light in that particular spot right there. And recognize the fact that this is about a 15 or 20 yard shot, and it's not a clean backstop. So I'm just going to say, if you don't know for sure that you can make that hit, if you're not absolutely confident that you can do it without fail, the answer here is not to shoot. The answer here is not to send rounds into the backstop of an apartment complex, because nothing good is back there. Now, I get it. Small bullets, big world. Nothing bad ended up happening here that was irreplaceable. No person was hurt or anything like that. But I don't want to, depend upon the grace of God and my bullet missing a good person. Only take those shots when you know you absolutely can hit him. And now, Mike, man, this reload here is kind of a cornucopia of fail. So I just want to talk about the fact that, A, he does have the gun in single action, which he should. He's just been shooting, right? But if you're going to reload the gun, you're going to decide, okay, I'm going to do a proactive reload. The first thing you need to do is decock this gun. It has a decocker for a reason.
Yeah, again, the weapon handling skills in general seem to be lacking pretty severely with this guy. But as far as the decocker goes, I never had to use one. I never trained with a single action, double action professionally before. But I do understand that what you don't want is to have that super duper light pressure on the trigger needed to discharge the weapon when you're now A, you've demonstrated that you can't keep your finger off the trigger.
Yeah,
and
that's
B,
the big one. Is he hasn't shown great trigger discipline.
And B, now you're doing a proactive reload. I think maybe he shot 5 or 6 rounds at this point, so I'm not sure we're really there yet.
Okay, I mean,
yeah,
so he's down 5 or 6. If he feels like he needs more, okay, fine. The next thing he does is he drops his magazine early, and so that gun for about 4 or 5 seconds, about 4 seconds, was completely unloaded, had 1 in the chamber and 1 in the chamber only. The way that we do a proactive reload, and this is that phrase I learned from Tom Gibbons of Ranger Master, is, again, we get the magazine out, bring it up to the gun, and then only when our spare magazine is up to the gun, we drop the other one and drop the magazine out of the gun that's partially filled and replace it with a new one so that our gun is empty for a very limited time. Of course, we only do that when there's a lull in the fight. We only do that when we're not actively being shot at, so that's why we say, hey, your decocker should come back, because you want to give yourself the margins for safety in that moment. Now, is this a nitpicky thing? It is. There are bigger issues to deal with here, but there's no reason not to do that right. That's something we learn administratively, so spend the time to do a proactive reload. I don't mind that he dropped the magazine in the dirt. That doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I like that. I prefer that to doing a retention reload, because retention reloads don't really matter in a gunfight at the end of the day. But I will say this, he put a new magazine in the gun, and we could see there that perfectly good, wonderful jacketed hollow point coming out of his chamber. Why did he put another magazine in the gun, Mike? Because he wanted more ammo.
Yeah, I got nothing to say about this, I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted more ammo in the gun, and yet he then put a magazine in the gun and immediately got rid of one of those and just wasted it onto the road. So again, you got to think, if you're going to do a proactive reload, no, I already have one in the chamber. It's not an empty gun. I'm not slide locked, and I don't need to do that. So then he decocks later. Now, the last one. Okay, so we're going to go over to the other officer here. And man, okay, this is hard, Mike. This is kind of hard to watch, because he comes out when the first 2 shots break. And so you got to know, I'm in a gunfight. I'm going to be the hunter here and not the rabbit. The mindset says, I am a hunter, not the rabbit.
Yeah, I don't love his follow-up here after hearing the shots go off. Like you said, there's only one place he's coming from, and that's down that staircase. So there's got to be a position you can get to. We're not hiding from this guy. We're trying to protect ourselves using cover, but the fact that he goes all the way around the car to avoid coming into contact with the guy tells me all I need to know. I would have liked to have seen him be a lot more aggressive in this situation.
Yeah, and again, I'm not gonna. I don't want to give him too hard a time, because I get it, man. I mean, listen, somebody's shooting at you, and that's scary as all get out, and that's the worst day imaginable. But especially as a badge law enforcement officer, you got to recognize the way to end this threat is to be the one who is aggressive enough and is skilled enough and is ready to protect myself, to protect the entirety of the community. I do like that he's using the other cars here and stuff like that, but again, hugging them so close. Please, officers, hear me. Get enough of that force-on-force training and use of cover training to know that the best thing you can do with this car is back off it a couple of good steps. Because if you back off that car a couple steps, it acts as better cover for you than when you're sucked up right against it. And then they're going to back up out of there. I get it in that moment. Okay, we're just going to get a big perimeter and we're going to end up finding this guy. But really, that prolonged the threat to everyone. And so if their skill set was up to par in that moment, I think this would have been a much, much shorter video. Man, difficult situation to watch all the way through, Mike. And again, we want to balance this one. I don't think this was Sacramento PD's most shining moment with these couple of officers. I think all's well that ends well and the end of things. But man, thank God nothing worse happened in this case.